Now, we looked at question 12a in the last video. I recommend, if you haven't watched it, please watch this video and attempt question A as you see on the screen, because part B relies on it. But I will go back over that quickly in this video. So we found the mean and the standard deviation of the costs of the ephone. Emma is looking for a U phone, and she finds that the mean is £675 and the standard deviation is £37. Now, as a common question in exams, we have to make two valid comments comparing the costs. There's a lot of ways to do this wrong, but I will show you exactly how to do this right. So the first comment you want to make is about the means. So the mean of the ePhones we found in the last video was 658. I will write E for ePhone and the mean is 658. Make E for short, and we'll say U is 675. And the wording we want to use is on average. So you need two sentences, and unless the question asks for it, which usually won't, you don't have to include the numbers, you just need a sentence. So we say on average the cost of the U phones. You can either say that the E phones on average are cheaper or the U phones are more expensive on average, but we say the cost of U phones are more expensive. Than the cost of ePhones. That's the first sentence. Now you want to start the first sentence, and this is the one comparing the means. So we're not looking at the standard deviation at the minute, but we will in a second. On average, because the mean is an average. We say on average the cost of U phones are more expensive than the cost of ePhones. Or you can say on average the cost of ePhones are less expensive or they're cheaper than the cost of ePhones. A few things that you cannot write, and I'm going to dictate them, so listen carefully and do not write anything that sounds like these. On average, U phones are more than ePhones. I'll say that again. Do not write on average U phones are more than ePhones. The issue, you haven't made a comment about the cost, because what does that mean that they're more? Is the screen size bigger? Do they have more SSD, or I don't know, the data capacity? Do they have better internet? You have to say in the statement that you write that it's the cost you're comparing. I know it seems common sense, but you must do that. Another thing not to write, Earphones are more expensive than earphones. I'll say that again. Do not write earphones are more expensive than earphones, because we've not mentioned that it's on average, because that sentence that I said implies that earphones as a whole are more expensive, but we are looking at an average. So you have to make it clear that it's an average, and you have to make it clear that we're comparing cost in this example. Let's do the next part. Oops, I've got it in the wrong pen. ESD. Again, you do not need to write this. It's just for demonstration purposes. And we got £42.40. Please watch it again if you're not too sure where this came from. Watch the last video. And the standard deviation of the earphones is £37. These videos should be in a playlist, so it will just be the last one before this in the playlist. So the question says that the standard deviation of the earphones that Emma finds is £37. So the standard deviation of the earphones is less than for the earphones. So this is what I would write. The costs of earphones are less varied than the costs of earphones. So you can say less varied, you can say more consistent, you can say less spread out, but this is the option I chose. But so I'll write this out. So you could say more consistent or less spread out. I will again dictate a sentence that you absolutely will lose a mark if you write, so you do not write it. Listen carefully. On average, the cost of earphones are less varied than the costs of earphones. The issue with that is because the standard deviation is not an average, it's a measure of the spread. So if you say on average, it might look correct, but it shows that you don't understand what a standard deviation is, because it's not an average. Another one, and listen in. Earphones are less varied or less spread out than earphones. The issue with this one, because again, you've not mentioned the cost. If you say that earphones are less spread out than earphones, what does that mean? Does it mean that the physical location of those phones are closer together? Because that's what it would sound like. And I know what you mean to write would be that the costs are less spread out, but the examiner does not know what's in your head. The examiner will read that sentence, and in ordinary English, that means that the physical locations of the earphones are less far apart, which is, it might be true, but it's not relevant to the question. It's not asking where in which shops are the phones and are the phones closer together. It's asking about the costs. So you have to be crystal clear with the wording. And if you look at any past papers, because this type of question comes up more times than it doesn't, it will ask you to find the mean and the standard deviation of one set of data, and it will ask you to make two sentences of comparison. In the marking scheme, there's far more many ways to get part B wrong than there is right, because there's so many slip ups you can make. And I know this video is a long one, but it's one of those ones that people keep getting wrong. So I hope you found this video useful, and I recommend, if you find any examples of these in past papers, look at the marking schemes and look for the type of things that people often write, because past papers usually will have a section that will say commonly observed responses, and for most questions, unless it's a really easy question, there's usually a whole host of ways that candidates have lost marks in the past. And if you read these, you'll find the common mistakes. There's going to be a lot of common mistakes in any section B on a standard deviation question. But best of luck with the studying, and thank you for watching.